Welcome, everyone, to yet another episode of Disruption Talks. We are fresh into 2024, and just as we were closing the last year with an episode with the head of engineering from OLX, this episode starts with the director of engineering from Talabat. So expect some similarities, but expect a lot of diversity in this episode compared to the previous one. So my guest today is Michel Aguib, the director of engineering at Talabat. Michel, pleased to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you, Philip. It's a pleasure to be here, guys.
The pleasure is all ours. And of course, the audiences and dear audience, just like every episode, I kindly encourage you to drop your comments and thoughts so we can take them with Michelle during our conversation. So, Michelle, I would love to tell the audience something about you from your LinkedIn or from our conversation, but I find it in my experience, it's always best to let the person talk about themselves instead of trying to describe them. So if you could just grace us with a couple sentences about who you are and how you got where you are.
Okay, thank you, Philip. I'm Michel. I've been in the software industry for the past more than 15 years now. I studied computer science in Egypt, Cairo. I started working on different companies, and then I started my own startup at some point during 2016. Stayed there for 5 years, and then I moved to Talabat, moved between Cairo and Dubai offices till I am where I am now. So I started writing code all my life, slowly because I'm more of a people person and I love coding and architecture. So I started to move slowly into management and how to bridge the gap between code, tech, and the business side.
Okay. So in our conversations before this, you did mention this to me that you don't miss being an individual contributor. And this is something that I've not heard from anybody who has told me about their path or any transition between, back in the day, I started as individual contributor of whatever department or category of IT. And now I'm a director, engineering manager, head off, and I miss being, down there getting my hands dirty. You're the first person to tell me otherwise. Can you tell me a little bit more, and the audience actually, about how, when you also mentioned this thing that after 6 months after the first job, you got the offer to run the department. I think that would be an interesting way to explain it to people.
Okay, so I started writing code as any software engineer. And I started at an average company where they used to sell barcode readers. And it was more of the same. So you would scan the code, it's code in quantity everywhere. And then they asked me to run the department. And what do you think I did when I was asked to run the department? I quit actually that job because I quickly realized that if I don't get much deeper into my craft, I will not be able to have any step up in my career. So I went to another startup. I started continuing actually to write code, wrote a lot of custom things, and then slowly I started to move into management. Now, about not missing coding, I mainly miss architecture. And I do a lot of architecture in my current job. I don't miss coding, but I like the architecture bit, how the systems talk to each other, how can you neatly design a system that could efficiently run without having any downtimes. So I have always been more of a people person, and that what helped me in my career, how to take coming from a deep technical background, and then I was able to bridge the gap between product, business, and tech. So yeah, I don't miss coding, but I love architecture more than coding.
Okay. And right now in your job, ever since you became director of engineering here, I've seen that your LinkedIn tells me that you have two positions, but if I understand correctly, it's just a geographical difference, right,
Yes.
between Cairo and Dubai. So you've been there a total of 3 years and 11 months, about to be celebrating your fourth anniversary at Talabat. Would you say that this is the same job essentially that you joined on day one that it is today? Can you share over 4 years a director of engineering? Has the position changed a lot? Not
Oh,
specifically within Talabat, but using Talabat in your position as an example. I'm curious.
um, I have to dive into that specific example because at Talabat, it's almost a new company every year. The challenges are completely different. The scale is different. I started running only like three small teams, and today I'm running two tribes with a little bit over 11 teams. Each year was different. um, each year was a different scale, different kind of problems. I moved between stacks, between problems, so it has been different. But the common thing is that being a director of engineering, I always see my job as like three boxes. Okay. The first box is how to make sure that my team is set for success. So they have all what they need to succeed. They have the focus, they have the clarity. They don't get bombarded with different kind of requirements everywhere. They have to focus on what matters. They have all what they need when it comes to the talent around them. They have the support from the other functions, up to having the right laptops for the job, right? So this is like the first box where I need to make sure that my team is set for success. And then the second box is creating clarity for our C levels and our business leadership and even technical leadership, how to give them a very clear picture on what is going on and what needs to be done so I can help them in decision making. That's my second box for my job. And then the third box is how to make sure that my team is growing when it comes to their career. So that's mainly like the three big boxes. I have also a fourth box, but it comes like it's part of the first one, which is technical excellence. I need to make sure that everything is being done as it should be done. So, and that comes maybe part of the first box, which is setting the team for success. Um, but those are the things that I do as director of engineering. I've been doing them for 4 years, the same boxes, but the depth is different, scope is different. Two teams rather than 11 teams. But the main focus and the boxes remain the same.
So box number one essentially is the caretaker, is someone who makes sure that everybody has access to, let's say, the same starting line. Box number two is the communicator for the C-suite stakeholders. Box number three is team growth. So that would be the gardener, if I may continue on this path of the metaphor. And box number four that you just added is essentially um, the boundary setter, right? So the quality of everything that has to be coming at an expected level. You will be taken care of, but you also have to take care of the work. So as much as the box number one seems pretty self-explanatory, that you make sure that nobody has a situation when they find themselves not having enough or lacking something that everybody else has. But painting the right picture for the C-suite to make decisions knowledgeably, I'd love to hear more about that, because I don't think that's a part of the job that is discussed frequently enough. Whenever we speak with head of, director of, engineering manager, it is largely, on the code, on the product, on the people. But this, I think, is something that over even 100 episodes, a lot of those being with people of engineering, arises. I would love to hear more about this part, especially that, it's probably a different type of language that you have to apply than the language that you're applying with your teammates and other product people. This is something that typically can arise some uncomfortable conversations when something is amiss on a target or something is not going to work out the way it is, but also some positive ones. But like I said, this is a completely fresh topic for me, so I want to hear from you about it as much as you can tell me and the
Okay.
audience.
So the past 4 years, maybe, especially those 40 years, we realized that the world moves very fast, faster than our annual plans and faster than our like 6 month plans, even. Everything changes very quickly. And that makes the ability to pivot for teams is really needed, right? Everything moves fast now. Business, technology, everything moves fast. And in our world, prioritization becomes very important. Shall you work on this topic or that topic? Shall you continue on this topic or the other topic? And because prioritization is always needed, that's where painting the picture comes very important. Because if you are a C-level leader in a company and you have like a lot of topics on your plate, you need to understand your team. What are the options that the team can proceed and execute perfectly? You can't make everybody happy, and you can't tell them, guys, we're going to do those 10 topics in those like 3 months. It's not going to happen. So that's where painting the picture happens. You have to showcase that those are the resources that you have. This is what our team can actually achieve in this timeline, and this is the expected impact. And there's also two other topics on the table that we can work on, and then it becomes a discussion of trade-offs, right? And that's very important in our world. That's one part, and then the other part is also mainly around collaborations and which teams should work with other teams, and then we need this team to also put some help in that topic and so on. So it becomes like a complicated network of teams, and that's also where you need to paint a picture what exactly needed to be done from different teams, and the collaborations between we need this department and this department. And it becomes really complicated as your company grows and the business becomes more complicated. That's where the painting the picture becomes very important.
So I wanted to ask you a question that uh, have you ever had a situation where these conversations got like just gone bad? Or is every conversation something that we can solve and everything's just kumbaya?
It's never kumbaya, but it's also not bad. But it becomes a tough conversation because you need to make hard choices. It's better to, one of our executives have this in his signature, and I love this phrase. Tells you if there are 10 rabbits around you and you only need one rabbit, focus on one rabbit. If you start chasing all the rabbits at the same time, you're probably going to catch nothing. But if you focus on one rabbit, you're going to get your rabbit, right? So you need to focus on what matters. It's really tough decisions that you need to, guys. I'm sorry, I'm going to deprioritize all those topics because we have those two big bets that we're going to focus on from X teams. Those topics will have to wait a little bit. So it is a tough conversation. But I haven't been in a situation where like some executive tells you, man, no, find a way. We need those 10 topics, and you like go and find a way around it. It doesn't go because
Yeah.
we really have a good team. And it doesn't happen that way because we live in an infinite, like in a finite world of resources, right? So it hasn't gone bad, but it's a tough conversation nevertheless.
Mm, so good to hear that there's no old school style management of just get it done. Um, Only one last thing on this topic of how to be a great director of engineering is I imagine that sometimes when you said those difficult conversations have difficult outcomes and outcomes for the team, as in team, I'm sorry, but this won't happen as soon as we finish as we thought, or this won't be released, or we have to wait for another thing. Can you give some advice to other directors of engineering or aspiring to be directors of engineering, or how to communicate such tough decisions that simply come externally to the team, that this is something that they just have to deal with?
So it's twofold. First one, we make sure, especially with our engineers, that we have product engineers. It's not someone who only writes code, but we need each and every single engineer to be really understanding their scope and the business behind the scope and why do we do that. Our engineers participate with product managers in discovering and going deep. So that is a very important item because if you have someone just machines writing code, you cannot have those tough discussions, right? But once you really make sure that your team has all the visibility and the understanding and the mindset to understand that, the second thing would be transparency as much as possible. So be transparent with the team, show what are the constraints that we're having, Why are we making that decision? Maybe because a competition is driving a tough new feature, and we need to be up to par. Maybe because we have a constraint on resources. Maybe because we have a timeline or something. But be transparent with your teams. They will appreciate it, and they will really give themselves into the job, which is like what we all want. They will grow, and the company will grow.
I suppose, adversity is inevitable, so it's best to teach people how to manage it and digest it. So, in this area of your work life, I also wanted to jump into the areas at which you work at, because as we've established, a great director of engineering makes sure that the current level is excellent and takes us to the next level, which is even another dimension of excellent. So let's discuss the current level at which you're at and sort of the transition that you took it to the next level. I know from our discussion that you are overseeing two fields that are green fields in some sense within Talabat. So these would be, correct me if I'm wrong, but Q-commerce and fintech, interestingly enough, not something that you might imagine on the surface level that we will hear fintech in a quick commerce discussion. But hey, tell me what you told, sorry, tell the audience what you told me the last time we spoke.
So I was fortunate enough to work on, as you said, two green areas. I started with quick commerce, and everyone knows that quick commerce, no one has really cracked the quick commerce bit. We have, of course, like Amazon, but I'm talking mostly about groceries and what your house needs. There's a lot of question marks around it. When I started in Talabat, we were a small team of like two, three small teams trying to do an MVP quickly, and then we grew. And then we grew into like almost like seven, eight teams now with proper domains and proper scope and mission. So this has been a very interesting ride, and that's when I say that we took it to the new level. That at first we took it from an MVP to a proper business today. Um, I started with fintech 1 year ago, and it's pretty much the same. Fintech starts with just payment integrations, and then you realize that fintech is a really important growth lever that you have. So in UAE now, we have with banks co-branded cards, we have buy now, pay later, we have a wallet, we have a couple of products that are really um, essentially integrating with our ecosystem that we're building for our customers. So both are green areas. I was fortunate to work on both areas. Fintech also, we spent a lot of time building the basics because it's a highly technical area and you need to have your reliability 100% because the slightest mistake, you lose a lot of money. So we spent a lot on that. And now we're moving into how can we make the best out of this growth lever. So yeah, I was lucky enough to work on those two green areas.
It's
But
interesting
if
about, oh, sorry,
yeah,
go on.
now I wanted to comment on the next level bit because in Talabat, we are famous for raising the bar. So each year, and that's why I was telling you that 4 years has been completely different. Each year, we raise the bar on our job requirements, on our technical excellency, on what we require from our roles, different roles. So um, it has been a very interesting ride. That is also part of taking it to the next level. That today, a senior is at least two, three times the senior in Talabat 3 years ago. Good. It's the same for all roles. We always like raise the bar on 100% of our talent,
But do
and
you
it
see
has
it as an
been.
exception to the industry, or do you see that as a general industry trend, or is it just Talabat being ahead of the pack?
That's that's a very good question. I don't know, honestly. I don't have clear visibility on much of other companies' roles, but it's very clear for me what we're doing. I think a lot of other companies are doing it, but I think we're doing it better.
Okay. Um, so with fintech, I wanted to say that it's generally a trend of most companies I've seen. I remember an article from 2020, from the pandemic times, from the fund A16Z, Andreessen Horowitz, saying that every company is going to be a fintech company, drawing on the example of Uber, how they had to start implementing fintech like features, even just for their drivers, not something that was visible to the users as we use Uber, but something that, hey, we can co-finance your car, we can help you with this, we can give you earlier access to your salary. So as much as I sort of portrayed my surprise, because this is not something that we hear about when we think about q-commerce that much, or for example, not in our region, Europe, that is, the general trend is something that was being propheticized years ago. So I wanted to move slightly into what the comments are asking us about and also what we discussed. So when we spoke about the personal, the company, and now the industry, so the most broad context that we can deal with here. Uh, we said predictions, we said forecasts, and there is a question that I would like to have pulled up in line with our discussion. Uh, the question from Barbara reads: personalization is becoming increasingly important in the world of online retail. How does Talabat leverage customer data and AI to provide personalized shopping experiences for its users? So, of course, I said predictions. This slightly narrows it down, but feel free to just take this on and then, revert to the broad spectrum.
Yeah, I agree with Barbara, and we're working on that actually. And it starts with very simple things till it gets more sophisticated. So right now, if you open our application, you'll see very clearly that items from where you ordered before. So it's like you previously ordered these items, and we can predict that like you order like one loaf of bread every week, for example. So we can show you options where you have things that you have ordered before, and it starts with that. And that's what we have today. I'm sure it's a very strong lever, and we are investing in our data team and our data counterparts. We have a very strong team on that, and they're helping us to take this one step forward. But what we have currently is the basic bit, but I'm sure it's a very strong lever that we believe in.
Okay. So I'm gonna be honest. I thought you were gonna say more, but if perhaps it's just a matter that there are things that are yet to be released and we can't talk that much about AI.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, okay. So we'll just keep
I
our
agree.
eyes
It's a very important topic, and we have only scratched the surface, but it's definitely going to get better.
Okay, so everybody, stay tuned. Keep your eyes close to this. But maybe more about this futuristic approach. You also mentioned that some of your partners, delivery hero companies, are working with robots. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that approach to delivery of logistics, because what else is there in Q-commerce? It's the experience, and then how fast and how it gets to my door or my hands, right?
Of course. Logistics is like one of our biggest topics at Talabat. Um, so right now, actually, Talabat delivers with robots in one small area in Dubai, but because it's a very well planned area with clear numbers for the houses, and it's in a very well structured setup. So we deliver actually with robots there. And we have also our partners in Korea, where they are also heavy on delivering with robots. So yes, we have robots delivery. Is this going to be like expanding in the next year? Probably yes, but there's a lot of challenges, and not everywhere is very well structured on the numbering and the network of roads and so on. So you can do that. So yes, definitely we're moving forward in this.
So it would be correct to say that perhaps we won't see a 0 to 1 saturation of all of a sudden every human will be replaced by a drone or a robot with 4 wheels, but much rather uh, case specific applications. For example, a drone will make a lot of sense for a rural area delivery, right?
Yes, I agree. It's going to be more use cases. I don't see that as anything is going to be 100% replaced. But I mean, it's like, you know, that Uber have choppers delivery in like in Dubai, right? But it's not going to be mainstream. So I agree to the use cases thing. I think it's going to be mainly use cases. I think it's going to be a very long time before this becomes the mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, we probably don't want it to become mainstream. Seeing the amount of deliveries just to my apartment, I don't think we have a helipad or enough helipads around. But that's just Warsaw. So maybe when we speak about the logistics, it's something that people assume that the person has to get me my stuff somehow. But I'm pretty sure it starts even earlier. And does your team also work on those logistics, or is it just logistics between the warehouse, the dark store, the place that actually stores the items, and me as the person ordering it? Or is the logistics supply chain path that technical people deal with is much broader and longer?
It is much broader and longer. So we run the shops and the software that runs the dark stores and how the networks between the riders and how can you optimize the delivery and the shortest path and all these things. But those are not on my team, to be honest. My team is more focused on the experience in the application for quick commerce and the fintech bit. But we have a huge logistics team that is focused on different tools of logistics and also the business side of logistics.
So I feel like we've slightly exhausted the topic of logistics, and I don't see anybody asking anything about it in the comments. So I want to move on to what you just said, this user experience part, right? So user experience is as much to do with the user as it has to do with the product. So focusing on the user behavior. We used to go shopping. Like I needed to go shopping. I would put my shoes on, get my coat on, and go to the nearest store. Maybe a convenience store if I need to get something done. Maybe a petrol station if it was late at night, everything was closed. Maybe a huge grocery store if I wanted to stock up for the month. Then COVID came around and said, "Hey, actually, we might get this stuff to you. You don't have to leave home because it's not safe for you." But now it's still safe, but we have all those other applications, and we even started taking it further with, I believe, I'm not sure if Gorillas regionally in Europe was one of the first companies to say, "Hey, we can get you your stuff in 15 minutes." Right. So that
Yes.
also somehow became an aspect of expectation from the user. And I wanted to hear from you whether, and this is more of a personal opinion than a Talabat director of engineering opinion, but I guess you have to answer me wearing both of those hats, is do you think that this 15-minute mark is something that was over advertised and right now is like a North Star metric that many companies are trying to achieve? But if it was 20 or 30 minutes, the world would be just as fine and the user experience wouldn't be in any way worse, or the marginal amount of people would say, "Hey, I needed it in 15 minutes."
I think it's heavily dependent on the use case, Philip. Again, I don't think that there is a one size fits all. So if you are ordering, like, if you're cooking something and you're missing one ingredient, you would want it to come in like 15 minutes. And it's a very light item that should be delivered quickly. But if you're ordering a stock of like water bottles and like your laundry stock and a lot of things that are heavy things, you don't need them in 50 minutes. You don't need them even in 1 or 2 hours. You can schedule them at the end of the day or the next day. So this is one aspect to look at, that it's not a one use case for all. There are some items that you need very fast, but some items you don't need very fast at all. Another factor, I think it differs also from city to city. Some cities you can make the 15 minutes very easily. Other cities, the logistical setup is not well prepared for that. You would end up like opening a lot of dark stores in a lot of areas, and then you'd end up with a very low utilization for those dark stores. So I think it's a mix of this and that, and we'll have to find our balance through those items. How can we provide the items that are really needed fast in 15 minutes, and the other items that do not need that kind of urgency, we can put them like at a more sustainable timeline.
I'm wondering because you just mentioned this interesting term, an underutilization of a dark store, right? I'm pretty sure that there is a map and the geography of it all has to make sense. Can you share some more of those? I want to use the term valley of death, but perhaps it's too scary. But my point is like things that in the matrix stop making sense eventually or are suboptimal, just like you mentioned, a dark store being underutilized. I imagine that there's also a basket that is too small for delivery, and that's where the surcharges happen. There's probably
Yes.
also a basket which is too large, or am I incorrect? I would love to hear about those things from a product perspective through the customer journey that can impact the Q-commerce business.
So, as you said, I'm focused on the customer experience bit of that. And we work very closely with our logistics partners. Sometimes some things could be stacked. So I can stack some orders with like one ride, right? And some things cannot be stacked. And our focus is how can we make that clear to our customers through the experience. So if you have like two riders coming to get you the stuff that you need because it's like too big to fit in one bag, right? So I'll have to show you two U riders coming to you, and where is each of those on the map? If those items are going to take a little bit more time because they're heavier items, you got to make sure that the user understands that from the user experience. So yeah, that's the main focus that we are on, and that the optimizations, to be honest, and that part we leave it to our partners in crime on the business side and on the logistics side.
Okay. So moving on through this user experience part, your users, if they use your solution, what do they not use? As in, what is the direct competition of the Talabat quick commerce solution? Is it me going to a convenience store? Is it every retail store? Is it me ordering shopping coming online, but in a more organized fashion, so I don't find myself missing ingredients mid cooking? But perhaps I become a person who's super organized and plan everything by the book. So, what is the sort of area of competition? Because perhaps that's something not obvious. Just like Uber doesn't really compete with taxis, it sometimes competes with your car or any other mode of transportation that you might choose. I'm wondering if there are similarities here.
Yeah, sure. I think, and that's my personal opinion. I think our biggest competition is being physically in the store. And if I go this one step deeper, our main competition is trust. Because if you think about it, you want to go to the store because you want to pick up your fresh food, right? You want to see your tomatoes, you want to see your cucumbers, you want to see your potatoes, choose the size that you want, choose the ripeness of the bananas that you want. That is the main driver for you to go to the shop, actually, right? Because there isn't any other reason. I mean, a can of a beverage is a can of beverage. It's you can get it from here, there, local store, the hypermarket. It's the same everywhere. It doesn't make a difference. Where does it make a difference? With fresh and ultra fresh products. And if you look at it, your main problem would be trust. So that's what we are solving for. How can you trust in the quality of our products? How can we give you the experience where you can choose bananas that are green or bananas that are ripe, bananas that need 2 days to be ripe? Small tomatoes or big tomatoes, do you want them to do like for salad or do you want them to make a salsa, right? These kind of things are our biggest competition, and that's our focus to fix our customers experience to reflect that kind of trust and give you that flexibility.
That's very interesting because come to think of it, I've seen plenty, at least here in Warsaw, of those not dark stores but dark restaurants, right? It has the same address. It has seven types of cuisine. I don't
Yeah,
know that place. I've never been there. So it's
yeah.
very difficult for me to even Google that place and get the reviews because all of the reviews are only within this app because those stores largely serve a purpose of existing only for this. So I'm curious, is it is it something that you said we will have to address? Is it something that it's just like a black box of how to establish this trust online from places that have to act like stores that you usually visit, but you have never been there because sometimes there's just no way of visiting them?
Yeah, I agree. That's what we're dealing with here. How to build the customer trust without actually having to visually see the items. I mean, there are solutions that are like drastic. I can give you like actual real pictures of the products, which are like which would really help, right? So I agree. It is mainly a problem of trust. How can we build a trust between, as you said, and honestly, it's not only virtual stores because our quick commerce, we also get you from regular stores, not only cloud stores or dark stores. We have a wide range of supermarkets and hypermarkets even on our app. So it's about the selection process, Philip, because you can get to your hypermarket and you see stuff, but like there are different range of stuff. How can you know which one that you want? This is the tricky part.
I mean, because that's like you said, drastic. Because if you implement sort of real time pictures of the items, there has to be someone who has to take the picture, someone who
Mhm.
has to upload it. It has to be a relatively live upload of what's being seen in store. Because if you're telling me these are actual pictures and you send me bananas that are actually not that ripe as I expected, then I come back to you with a customer complaint. So mathematically, it just seems, I don't want to say impossible, but very
Not
tough.
scalable. It's not scalable. That's why we need to build the
Scaling trust
trust.
is the challenge for 2024. Scaling trust.
100%.
Okay. So we have another question from the audience, and this time it's Bartosz Mathauser asking, I also wonder about tech aspects. Are there specific technological innovations that you believe will significantly impact delivery dynamics? And this might sound slightly similar to what we discussed about predictions and forecasts, but I think here Bartosz is asking more about, is there something that sort of everybody's waiting for, like a major unlock on any part of the q-commerce business, that if it comes, it's like the holy grail? Let's say what ChatGPT did to copywriting. Is there something that's coming or people would love to see, like a magic wand feature?
Honestly, I don't have anything on my radar that is going to magically like change something that we're all waiting. Maybe further applications for ChatGPT, as you said, when it becomes like more mainstream, and maybe we can have like robots that are driven by ChatGPTs. Maybe that would make a bigger difference. But there isn't anything on my radar, to be honest.
Okay. So yeah, because what we've seen as NetGuru with our clients in the space of utilization of GPT, it's been description, auto generation, of course, and sometimes even aspects to do with image, not only alteration such as retouching and so on, but even generating menu images for restaurants that simply couldn't have the time or the resources for provision of a professional photographer. So completely agreed with you there, and curious if you've seen other than those two obvious applications that I've mentioned, right? So for description generation and for image management.
We've had a big launch with ChatGPT in quick commerce, where you would talk to ChatGPT and ask him for recipes. So I need a recipe for a lasagna. And then he'll give you the recipe and automatically fill your baskets with all the items that are needed for that recipe. So we have this already working on our platform. So this is one cool application. In addition to the ones that you mentioned, so we had some experimentations with generating images mainly and text, and I think they were really good.
That sounds, the recipe thing. It's
Yeah.
something that's so simple and so obvious, yet I didn't think of it. That the personalization aspect of it really is interesting, especially that over time,
Yes.
if I'm a user, I'm a repeat user, you learn what I've been ordering, and you sort of maybe start figuring out what I'm making, and you
Only
can give me
you don't need
advice.
time for that. You don't need time for that to be personalized because you can ask ChatGPT and tell them, Like, listen, I'm a 40 years old vegan who wants to stay away from high cholesterol food, and I prefer to have a lot of fresh components, and I want to eat a lasagna. Can you give me a recipe for that? And it's like two-liner, and he will get you all the things that you really want. So if you just prompt ChatGPT with whatever that you need, it can be easily get all what you want.
Okay. And I'm smelling a super app approach of sorts, right? Because that's pretty much how super apps develop. You have the core business, and then you have the things that you add that can be a major unlock. Because over some time, it wouldn't be impossible for me to imagine that after 10 years of talabat knowing about how I order, how I live, how I eat, to start giving me, maybe not even within 10 years, maybe 2 or 5 recommendations for my health, right? If you are so close to my diet, uh, it's not impossibly out of the ordinary to have that discussion with the user at some point, or perhaps even connect them to a partner.
This is the first time that I hear this idea, and I like it very much. Thank you for the inspiration.
Hopefully, you can give me some credit in
Well,
the help.
we're not aiming to be a super app right now, but like I love what you said.
I mean, this is not an original thought. I was listening to the All In podcast on the weekend, and they were actually explaining on the example of another app how basically the DNA of a super app is being able to have, just like what Uber did and adding Uber Eats. They already had the buy side, they had the demand side, they had the supply side, because the same people that are driving around people can also drive around food. So applying the same logic of what do we have already on hand that doesn't cost us that much because we already have the people and the users. So, like you said, maybe you don't have the ambition for Talabat being a super app today, but definitely the garden is set up to perhaps be one day.
Yeah, we were just talking about how business quickly evolves and how our world, modern world, is really moving very fast. So yeah, maybe.
Fingers crossed for that. So, Michelle, I will have to ask you one final question that we ask all of our guests, unless there's any extra questions in the comments. No, I don't see them. Is I hand you a magic wand. I don't have my Apple Pencil around me to, visualize this correctly, but you get to wave it, and all of the 12-year-olds in the world are given the gift of education about, and here's your answer. And there's no right or wrong answer. There's just your answer. We've heard many things. We even heard things like leave the kids alone, stop forcing them to learn something new again. So I'm curious, what would it be in your opinion?
That's a very tough question, Philip.
You can take some time.
So basically, if I have a magic wand and all 12 years old would learn something, I
Emotional
would,
intelligence.
yeah, I would definitely vote for all 12 years old to learn about peace and love in humanity, to be honest. In the current world that we're living, filled with weird, unnecessary wars, that would be my vote.
So peace and love. So emotional intelligence. Hopefully not
Definitely.
only theory but also practice. Right.
Yes, 100%.
All right, Michelle. So thank you so much for today. We've had a really good 45 minutes exactly on the dot. So unless you have anything you wanted to share with the audience or ask me, we would be wrapping up this episode. So
No, I'm actually thankful for all the audience and for all the people that left us questions and gave us an inspiration for those interesting topics. And also, thank you, Philip, for a very nice and interesting, inspirational talk.
the pleasure is, as always, all mine, Michelle. So thank you so much. And dear audience, thank you for being with us again. See you on the next episode of Disruption Talks. Bye bye.
Bye bye.